All right, get this for a second. You apply for a job, you fail a polygraph test, and boom, you're out. No job for you. But if you're already an employee at that same place, failing that exact same test often isn't enough to get you fired. So how is that possible? We're going to unpack this really weird paradox that sits right at the heart of security screening.
So, yeah, here's the puzzle, right? For a job applicant, a failed polygraph is pretty much a dead end. The door just slams shut. But for someone who's already on the inside, that same result usually isn't a fireable offense. How can the same test have such wildly different consequences? It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This has to be about the polygraph's sketchy science, right? And look, that's a huge debate, a whole can of worms for another day, but it's not the answer here. The real reason for this paradox, it's not found in a science lab. It's found in the law books.
Yeah, the difference in how people are treated has nothing to do with the machine itself. It's all about the legal framework. It really boils down to one simple question. Are you on the outside trying to get in, or are you already on the inside?
So think of it like this. The moment you deal with a potential employer, you hit this legal fork in the road. And the path you go down depends entirely on whether you're an applicant or an employee. And believe me, these two paths are governed by completely different sets of rules.
Okay, this slide is absolutely crucial. This is where the paths split. For applicants, over on the left, you don't have a job yet, right? So you have no real legal claim to it. If the government just says no, they call that non-selection. They aren't taking anything from you. But for employees, on the right, well, now you already have something valuable, your job. Taking that away is called a deprivation, and that one word triggers a whole universe of legal protections, like due process.
So this legal split means the polygraph ends up playing two totally different roles. For applicants, it's basically a bouncer at the door, a gatekeeper. But for employees, the law demands a whole system of safeguards. Let's see how that actually plays out.
When you're an applicant, the polygraph is just a gatekeeping tool. That's it. Its whole purpose is to screen people out and manage risk before they ever get inside. And since the employer isn't taking anything away from you that you already have, the legal bar for them is incredibly low.
So this is the tough reality if you're an applicant. You have very, very few legal protections. The courts, they almost always side with the agency, and they see a rejection not as some kind of punishment, but just as risk avoidance. The gate is shut, and honestly, there's not much you can do about it.
But the second you're hired, boom, the whole picture flips. This entire system of safeguards just kicks in. You've got federal laws, you've got regulations with appeal processes, and you have courts that are looking much, much more closely. An agency can't just act on a whim anymore. They have to actually justify what they're doing.
And get this. This is the really wild part. That same polygraph result that just got an applicant completely disqualified, for an employee, it's officially described as non-diagnostic. It becomes just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, and it can never, ever be the only reason for a decision. The context just completely changes everything.
Okay, so we have these two completely separate legal lanes, right? The applicant rules and the employee rules. But what happens when an employer tries to, blur those lines? What if they try to use the easy mode applicant rulebook on someone who's already an employee? Well, that's when the whole system really starts to break down.
And here's the key maneuver they use. An agency will try to say, oh, by the way, passing the polygraph is now an essential function of your job. You see what they're doing there? They're trying to sidestep all those employee protections by treating an existing employee like a brand new applicant. They're trying to turn back the legal clock.
And the consequences of that one little move are huge. It pulls that low scrutiny, anything goes logic from the hiring process and drops it right into employment law. It's a way to try and erase their duty to accommodate employees, to bypass regulations, and to make their decisions way harder to challenge in court. It's really just a legal sleight of hand to strip away rights.
So why does this all matter so much? I mean, why are we getting so deep in these legal weeds? Well, because at its core, this whole thing is about fundamental fairness. It's about holding agencies accountable and making sure they actually play by the rules they themselves established for the people already on their payroll.
Upholding this legal line isn't about second-guessing security screening. Nobody's saying that. It is all about enforcing the rules that the government itself created, a very clear line that separates how you screen applicants from how you treat employees.
So after all that legal complexity, what's the one big takeaway here? If you're going to remember just one thing, what should it be? Let's distill it all down to one core idea.
Here it is. Polygraphs get a pass as a gatekeeping tool at the front door precisely because applicants don't have a lot of legal protections. But the moment you are through that door, the second you have a job, the law steps in and says, whoa, hold on.
Now there have to be safeguards, accommodations, and real enforceable limits on how much that test result can be relied on.
Which leaves us with this one powerful, lingering question that is really the central fight in this whole debate. Can an employer erase a legal right you already have just by relabeling it as part of the job? That question, that is what's at the very heart of the polygraph paradox.